Haran Wolfovitz Yaffe. Give a round of applause.
I was unrecognizable. The head of the ICU in Rambam described me as a human mesh. During that time, they did 3 experimental procedures on me. One called image-controlled surgery, one is a drug called Novo 7, and the other one is an experimental procedure in invasive radiology. And what can I tell you? It worked. But it's a very funny story. They operated me in the OR. They sent me back to the ICU. I crashed. I went back to the OR. They resuscitated me, sent me back to the ICU. I crashed, went back to the OR. It was a game for about 10 days. At some point they decided we're not going to even bother going to the OR. They operated me in the ICU. At that point my mom collapsed, so the doctors went to take care of my mom. She had low blood sugar, that's her excuse. But yeah, then they operated me on the battlefield. Every day they tell my parents, just listen, you better say your goodbyes now. And my mom says, I know my son, he's a drama queen. On the 10th day, my single was released. I was in a coma in a hospital, and the single that I was recording with the studio that we got just before the war was released to the radio. The disc jockey says, this is Boker Tel Aviv, this is Haran's song. Haran is currently in a coma in Haifa. Haran, this is your song. Haran, wake up, Haran, wake up, Haran, wake up. Boker Tel Aviv, עם קולות של חגיגה, כולם מתכוננים למצעד הגאווה, ולי זה לא אכפת שיחגגו עד מאוחר, העיקר שנתעורר פה ביחד גם מחר. It's time that I opened my eyes. A few hours later, I wake up. I regain consciousness in Rambam Medical Center. I was sure that I was being captive. Everything was green. I was tied to a bed. I had no idea where I was, and I remember this nurse or a doctor or a figment of my imagination. I have no idea who it was. I was looking for many times afterwards. But I remember she came and said, relax. You're in Rambam. You're in Israel. You're alive. Relax. A few hours later, my parents come and they start talking to me. The days go by and I started to, beginning to realize what exactly happened to me, because I was sure that it was just my leg. And when I woke up, it was sure it was just a few hours after the injury. Apparently I was out for 10 days. Apparently I lost my abdomen wall, I lost my stomach muscles. They almost amputated my leg, but decided that it's not going to do any good anyway, because it has no abdomen wall. My face was burnt, my body was burnt. I had a huge shrapnel on my right elbow. They took off my liver, some of my colon. I was in a very, very interesting position. The worst thing for me was, I remember when my mom went always into my room, she was always looking down. She never looked at me. She was always like. And that look was so bad for me. I said, hell no, this aggression will not stand. There's no way that I'm going to leave my mom looking like that. But the worst thing medically for me, never mind the fact that they told me, just be thankful you're alive, you're going to stay in the hospital for the rest of your life. Yada, yada, yada. I had a shrapnel injury above my right elbow. living my arm paralyzed, meaning I can't play. And what's the point of me living if I can't play? What was the point of all this miracle if I can't play? So many people risk their life just to save me, and I can't play. But I wanted to cut the cords and leave me there. There was no way that I'm gonna live without me playing. And I decided that it's not just that I'm going to play again. I'm going to be even a better player. I'm not just going to walk again. I'm going to do stuff that I haven't never done before. I'm going to make all the pedestrians feel bad that I am the disabled veterans. I'm out walking them. It was a very, very long struggle. It started about 3 months after my injury. I decided that I had enough. I'm going home. And they told me, yeah, shut up. And I threw myself off the bed and I started crawling the hallway in Rambam. And the doctors and the nurses were trying to grab me back into bed. And I said, let me go! And I'm crawling on the floor and there's a trail of blood behind me. And now you imagine that I'm crawling fast. It was very, very, very slow. Very slow. It was probably, if you imagine a hallway, it was probably a meter. But in my imagination, I was climbing the Chilmot. And there was a walker in the middle of the hallway, and I tried to grab hold of the walker. And I tried to lift myself, and then I collapsed. I said, okay, you can take me back to my room now. And that began a daily ritual. I started crawling the hallway, reaching to that walker, bringing myself, trying to stand, fell down, go back to the room. The nurses would clean the blood. My mom would look at me with you're not my son. And then I brought myself to a complete stand. And then a complete stand wasn't enough. I started dragging myself with a walker. And then dragging myself wasn't enough. I started moving my legs. I started walking with a walker. And then as the months went by, a walker became crutches. Crutches became a cane, and a cane became a surfboard. I started surfing. I haven't done any extreme sports before I was injured. And now look at me, I was scars all over, and I'm on a surfboard. Took pictures of myself every extreme sports that I had, sending to my doctor, showing them that the body indeed is a miracle. There was something about the fact that they told me, just be thankful you're alive. And no one should be just thankful to be alive. Being alive is meant that you have to live. If you're just breathing, you're taking space. Move on to the next world. There's enough space there. If we're on this world, we gotta do something. We gotta contribute. We gotta be a contributing part of society. We have to take advantage of the fact that we are here. We have to give back. We have to live. And I always believed in that. And I believed even more in that after I was injured. And it became a challenge. Because before that, I never imagined that I would be injured. It's easy to live, to travel to America and play guitar. It's easy. But now I had to show everybody else. I remember people telling me all the time when I was in the hospital what we like to call pedestrians. They always come to us and said, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And the only thought that I had in my head, and not just me, all the disabled veterans, is that you want to take your cane, you want to break their back, put them on the wheelchair, and ask them, are you really going to be okay from this situation? One of the worst things of being a disabled veteran, of being injured, of being sick, is when the unsick, when the healthy comes to you and says, you don't worry, it's going to be okay. Because you never know if you're going to believe them or not. And I remember this guy coming to my hospital and telling me, it's going to be okay. And I just snapped. I said, wow, how do you know it's going to be okay? And he just lifted his pants, and I see he has no legs, I see 2 bars. And I tell him, okay, you
can say.
So it's going to be okay? You sure? And we sat down, we had a chat, and that was a really big boost for me with my recovery. So I started walking, like I told you. I was getting back into shape. I was still in rehabilitation, but the worst thing about my injury was my right arm. How do I go back playing again? So it started with me bringing my piano to the hospital. So I used to sit in front of the piano. I would lift my arm, and I'd put it on top of the piano, and I used to stretch my fingers to create a chord. And then I used to press with my left hand on the piano just to hear the sounds. And then I would change the chords, the notes, and press it down just to hear the sounds. And then I had to bring the guitar again. So my arm was always closed like that. So I used to forcefully open my fingers on the strings. Much pain, much pain. Open on the strings, and I used to quickly do a chord with the left hand before my right palm shuts down. And then again, I used to forcefully open my hand, and it shuts down. A lot of painkillers, many hours, and everybody's telling me, take it easy. I said, no. I have to play. I don't care. And as the months went by, I was able to actually play. I still don't play as good as I used to play. And my style is completely different. And if you'll see, these fingers move fast, and this one, the right hand still moves slower. And if you see, my pinky is a bit crooked. It stays on the side all the time. It's a very fun game. About a year after the injury, I was walking again. I was able to hold the guitar, yet I still had no stomach muscle. I had nothing but skin covering my colon, which was very cool at the time because I could see food going down my colon, snake style. Very, I remember my guys always, show us. It was very disgusting yet very cool at the same time. And there was no solution. Nobody knew what to do because my abdomen was such in a bad shape they couldn't do any regular surgery. So they started sending me all over the world to try to find a solution for that. We found an Indian doctor. An Indian, not from India. An Indian from the US. He was a doctor in the US, but he wasn't an Indian from the US. He was an Indian from Peru. And when I say an Indian from Peru, I'm not saying a guy who grew up in the city. I'm talking about a guy who grew up in the mountains of Peru. He went and became a doctor. He was such a good doctor, they sent him to Johns Hopkins. He became this magician when it comes to muscles. And he pretty much butterflied my obliques. So they took my muscles from here, they cut them out, they reassembled a new abdomen wall, and voila, I have muscles now. 6 months later, I was finally released from the hospital, and I said, okay, now it's time to live the dream. I went to South America. I decided I'm going to learn how to snowboard. So I went to South America. I bought snowboarding gear. I went on top of a mountain, did a stupid move, and I broke a rib. Luckily for me, I still had my painkillers. I was able to move forward. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. But then I went to the US, got into Columbia University, I only got in because everybody told me that I won't be able to get in. This is a very difficult school to get in. I said, oh, you know, I'll show you. This is very easy. I filled some applications. I got in. Started playing in New York. I wrote an album. I wrote a book. Playing all over New York. During all that time, I was giving lectures all over the world. I was working with disabled veterans, Israeli Americans. Was invited to speak in the American Congress for the Veterans Committee. I did a lot of fundraisings for hospitals. I worked a lot with kids in schools and music, and pretty much I did everything I set my mind to it. And I think that if I would want you to take something from this lecture, it would be that. That if you set your mind to something, reality doesn't matter. Physicality doesn't matter. There's a straight line between what you have here and the end result. This rabbi, I can't remember the rabbi's name from yesterday, he was talking about the beginning of this, of parashat, of the parasha of Shlach Lecha. And he says that Shlach Lecha is pretty much means it's Lecha, it's for you. It's, you have to set your own goals, your own desires. And I'm here to tell you that yes, if you im tirtzu en zo agada, it is very easy. The simplest thing. All you need to do is want it. But really want it. Believe in it. And that's the hardest thing. Accomplishing is very easy. There's a straight line between what goes in your head and the end result. Really simple. All the surroundings, all the people around us are telling us this is very difficult. Don't set your expectations too high because you might get disappointed. Dream thieves. Never mind them. If you set your mind to something, you shall have it. Nothing can come in your way. I still haven't accomplished many of my to-do list. A few years ago I found a paper that I wrote when I was 15 of what I'm going to do till my 30s. And I found it about 2 years ago when I went back from 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, when I went back to New York, from New York to Israel, and I found it because my mom was going through my stuff. Look what I found. Oh, you were so cute back then. And I looked at that and I said, okay. Now I have a list. I know exactly what I need to do. Haran, the 15-year-old kid, needs to get his stuff. Among that stuff was writing a book. I started doing that. Before that, releasing an album. I did that. It was serving in a combat unit. I did that. And there's other stuff that I'll keep for myself. But now I'm fulfilling the dreams that I had when I was 15. And when I'm done with that, I'll have a new set goal list of 30-year-old Haran. I just turned 30 about 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. Now, me turning 30 was an experience of its own. About 6 months ago, I finished. I got off at about a year and a half in the studio in Israel. We were playing in Israel everywhere, but I felt like something is missing. Things weren't going the way that I wanted them to go. So I decided I'm going to travel the world. Left everything. I said, what's the point of living in pain in a small apartment in Tel Aviv if I can be in pain on the beach in the Dominican Republic? So I picked up all my stuff and I went to the Dominican Republic. I had a nice place there on the beach for 2 months. From there I went to New York and to Canada. From there I went to Barcelona. all the way I'm writing new songs, I'm writing new articles, I'm working on a new startup, and I was really skimming it. I was in Dominican Republic. I played in a bar on the beach just to pay the rent. Really taking it simple, nothing too fancy. And the goal was that upon summer, I will meet my boys here in London on the June 20th, and we're going to do a big summer tour in Europe, and we're shooting a documentary about the music scene. 3 weeks ago, that's where the 30s action began. 3 weeks ago, my credit card company does a mistake. They took too much money from my bank account. My bank account closed all my credit cards, all my accounts, and I'm stuck in Barcelona. No cash, no nothing. It's a week before my 30s. I'm stuck in Barcelona, and I have nothing. And I'm sitting, and how did I get there? I'm trying to figure out, did I spend so much money? What happened? How am I going to pass the next day? Why is this happening? But like I told you, there's a straight line between what we have in our head and the end result. Nothing is relevant. The magic started when I was visiting a friend in Barcelona. We were on the roof. It was the day, it was Vav B'Sivan, my Hebrew birthday, Eve of Shavuot, and I'm on the rooftop in Barcelona with another friend. We're having a few beers. Of course, he paid for the beers because I don't have anything. And we started playing guitar. He brought a guitar, I played the guitar, he played the bass, and we started playing on the roof. Suddenly, people started to look from the windows, and people starting to go up on the rooftops. And I found myself in Barcelona on my 30th Hebrew birthday, playing to the rooftop of Barcelona with about 50 to 100 people standing on the rooftop around us. Magic. It was phenomenal. The skies were beautiful, and I'm singing and I'm strumming. I don't care about anything in the world, really. The next day I wake up in the morning and I'm getting a phone call from a guy who knows me in New York. He's telling me, listen, this guy's gonna call you in about a few hours. He needs you to send him this and that. That guy the guy who called me was one of the guys that I know in New York. The person who was supposed to call me was the director of the A&R of Atlantic Records, one of the biggest rock labels in the world. That's like a phone call that never comes. That's the phone call you wait for the rest of all your life. And I started walking back and forth, and my friends said, "Oh, this cannot be. This is it's my 30th birthday." It's the same day. Apparently, this year the English birthday became just a day after the Hebrew birthday. I started walking back and forth. How can that be? This is crazy. And I poured myself a glass of rum, and I put another glass of rum, and a glass of rum, and trying to figure out, what do I need to send in this? A few hours later, he calls me and tells me, listen, we heard your stuff. We're interested. We want you to go back in the studio and record a few things. I don't even have a dime to go in the studio. My brother, I called to my brother, and there's a wedding in Israel. One of my best friends is getting married. So I hop on a plane to Israel with the help of my brother. I go to Israel to a wedding. From the airport, I go to the studio. I close myself in the studio for 3 days, only going out to the wedding, getting drunk at the wedding, getting back hungover to the studio, recording that stuff that one of the biggest labels in the world wanted. I hop on a plane from Tel Aviv to Barcelona, to London and I end up here to follow the rest of my dream. This phenomenal summer that's gonna happen. That line that goes between my head and my dreams. I'm not saying it's easy. Playing on top of the rooftops in Barcelona is not easy. It's very, very challenging. But I was kidding. It was very, very easy. But that's it. Like when you need something to happen, it happens. God always takes care of that. God takes care of business. All you need to do is dream. Just dream, but really dream. Don't say I'll really want it. Im tirtzu en zo agada. That one line created one of the greatest places on earth. Phenomenal. My home. You should go. But that line talks to each and every one of you. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your profession, doesn't matter that. There's always that dream we had as a kid. And that kid still nests in all of us. And it's good that we have that kid, that dream. Let's fulfill our dreams. Let's make stuff happen. Because that's what we do. That's what we're brought upon this world to do. Not just us as human beings, but specifically us as Jews. We were brought here to make sure that this machine keeps going. We are not just a screw in the big machine. We're the screwdriver who fixes the screw. We're the oil that makes that. We're the one who makes sure we change the gear in the machine. We're not just screws, we run this machine. And if we don't do that, we lose the whole point of being Jews, of being human, of living. Because if we're just breathing, next world, we don't need you. Dream, fulfill, live, love. I was talking to Rabbi Ziskind yesterday, and he was talking about Ahava shelo tluya bedavar. And he reminded me of an article that I published a few months ago about the same subject. And in that article I wrote a paragraph about how always in the movies and in songs people say that I would die for you. And I say, buffoons. That's the easiest thing, to die for something. I want to hear someone say, I'm going to live for you. I'm going to live, and not just breathe, live for the full extent of the world. I want to feel every second of that, of you. And that would be love. Ahava shelo tluya bedavar. Nothing can overcome that. So live and love. And that's it, I think.